Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back. Today's Daf Yomi is Kesubos Ayin Hey, and we begin on the 10th line from the top of the Amud. Rav Amar. Getting back to yesterday, where we had a kasha, because we found a brisa, which told us as follows. A fellow is mekadesh an isha, on condition that you're not bringing along any baggage, any nedarim, any restrictions. Turns out she misled him. So in one brisa it says, well, if she quickly runs to the chacham and his mater neder, which pretty much undoes the entire arrangement retroactively, meaning she never had any neder, because the mater neder undoes it lima freya. In that case, the kedushin is fully valid. He said no nedarim. Well, guess what? No nedarim. But then we had another brisa. In the same case, he does kedushin on condition, no nedarim. It turns out she has nedarim, and she runs and makes hataras nedarim. It doesn't help. And the question is, why? So one teretz we had already proposed yesterday. Here comes another one. Rava Amar. Who's speaking that his wife, or his proposed wife, comes from a prominent family, an upstanding family, which this fellow wants to interact with and marry into. Damar. So he says, look, I understand that technically you have undone your nedarim retroactively. Lima freya. But I see that you're a person who is inclined to getting involved in expressing nedarim and making limitations and restrictions upon yourself, which I can't tolerate. So down the road, you're going to continue with this, this habit. And at that point, I'm going to get stuck with you. I don't want to live like that, and I don't want to have to give you a get either. You know why? Damar, he says, Lo nichali. The fact is, when I give her a get, I become usher. I can no longer marry into her family. The relatives of a divorcee are usher upon him, and he wants to interact with that family. So rather than continuing on, risking a get down the road, he says, look, let's cut it right here. I conditioned no nedarim, you brought nedarim, forget about the whole kedushin. This allows me to marry somebody else in your family. Asks the Gemara, Ihachi. So based on this way of thinking, let's take a look at the next part of the brisa. Seifa. The Ketani, it says like this. He married on condition that he has no neder, that he is physically sound. Right? Nothing unwell about him. Turns out he's unwell. It turns out he has nedarim. Aval hu shehalach etzel chacham v'yitirah. Let's say he comes into the marriage full of nedarim, but he runs to the chacham who is mater the neder, who undoes it. Or in the case of a physical deficiency, he runs to the local doctor who addresses it. Eitzel reife v'ripe oise, who healed it for him. Mikudeshes. So now it works. Question is, well, for the same reason that it didn't work in the previous case, it shouldn't work here. Listen to Enem Kodeshes. Here as well, the Brisa should say, look, it's not a Kedushin. What do you mean? Why is it not a Kedushin? Valema will explain it as follows. Hacha ba'adam chashav askina. We're speaking about a fellow coming from a chashav family with whom she wants to interact. The Amra shall say like this. I can't continue living on with this fellow. Sure, he had addressed his neder. Lima freya. He never had, so to speak, any nedarim because the chacham undoes it retroactively. Sure, that's good until today, but what happens down the road? When he gets upset and he starts making nedarim on me, I'm uninterested in living on with him like that, and at that point it'll be too late, because then I'll need a get. The Amr, she says, Lo nichali, that it's a rekreve. When I get a get, I'll become usher on his relatives. I want that to happen. So why didn't the Brisa present such a halacha as well? Why is it only on her side, not on his side? He's unwilling to live with an isha who makes nadarim because he's risking a get down the road which makes him usher on her relatives. He's unwilling to do that. The same exact configuration could happen in the reverse. She's unwilling to live with a fellow who makes nadarim because she's risking a get down the road which will impose restrictions on her ability to marry into his family. Answer is, Anisha is not so particular. She's happy to live with this fellow. It gives her pride, it gives her prestige to be considered a missus, a married woman. Ihi bekoduhu nichala. Anything is okay for an Isha, as long as she's married. So she's not so particular about this, particularity, maybe down the road. She doesn't get into that. She's happy that she's married. She goes with it. Kid Rish Lakish, as Rish Lakish tells us. The Amr Rish Lakish, tav, it is preferred, lemesav, to sit, to live. Tan means a guf, body, to live with company. Lemesav armalu, than living yourself. Whoever he is, married is still better than single. That's a saying that people use. Women use. Rashi points that out. Women, nashim oimros. So an Isha is more inclined to settle for something, even though it's less than perfect or less than ideal. The Gemara will present several more phrases which sort of sing the same song and have the same underlying, message. Abaye Omar de Shum Shemana. Shum Shemana is a little ant. Gavra, her husband is a little midget, a little ant. Not worth too much. Still, she's proud of him. Kursei, her seat, her chair, Becharasa, amongst the free women, amongst the prominent women, Ramila, they place it for her, meaning she finds her place socially amongst the women if she's a married woman. So she's willing to settle for anything as long as she's married. Rapapa Amar de Nafsa is a lotion of niputs. Gavra, her husband has a job as a menapitz. It's a lowly, a degrading job. Menapitz means to comb, wool. She's willing to live with a husband who has a menial job, as long as she's considered married. She's still okay with him, because it gives her pride. Tikraye, she'll call him, come, husband. Besife, bava. Bava, the doorway. Besife is like the sapos, the door posts. She'll stand by a doorpost and call out to him, come over here, Betesiv, and she'll sit with him. So he's her pride and her joy, even though he's not the most prominent person. Ravashi Omar, another example, the Kalsa Gavra, one whose husband is Kalsa. Rashi learns, even though he comes from a questionable lineage, a questionable family, still she's so satisfied with him, she won't ask him for anything. She doesn't even need even beans, likidra for the pot. She's willing to ignore she's willing not to ask him for anything. I don't need anything from you as long as I'm considered married. Tana, but we learned in the Brisa, these aren't really ideal marriages. These women don't have too much respect for their husbands. V'kulan, in all these cases, mezanois, they interact with others who give them attention, who give them prestige. V'toileth b'balein, and then they blame their children on their husbands. Continues the Gemara. So in the Mishnah we speak about an Isha who's married, and then they discover mumen, blemishes. What constitutes a serious physical deficiency? Kol mumen shepoislim b'kayhanim, says the Mishnah. We have a list in Maseches Bechoros of various mumen that are considered impediments. Don't allow a kohen to serve in the Mikdash. Likewise, they are considered significant enough mumen regarding the Isha that a man can be particular about these mumen and gets in the way of their kedushin. Tana, however, we have in a Brisa that by an Isha there are several examples of mumen that are unique to the Isha, not applicable by the kohen. You see, for Alain, the Chachamim added to the mumen found by Kehanim. The following three apply to the Isha, even though they don't apply to the Kehanim. Zeya, somebody who sweats excessively. Veshuma, a wart. V'reich apeh, who exudes an unpleasant odor from one's mouth. So these three apply to the Isha over the Kohen. V'hani b'kehani lo pasli. So you mean that all these don't apply to Kohanim? But Tanan, we have a Mishnah. We're speaking about a behema that has a mum. Hazakin is too old, v'achoyle, unwell, v'amezuam, which sounds like is overly sweaty, etc. So it applies by a behema, and it applies by the kohen as well. It's not mumen elu. These mumen just mentioned, bein kvuin, bein oivrin, whether they're permanent conditions or just temporary conditions, pesulim ba'adim apply to the kohen as well. So mezuam, which we assume is the same as zeya, exuding too much sweat, etc., that is applicable to a kohen as well. So why are you saying it's limited to the Isha? The answer is, depends how serious. Kan bezeya iveres. Kan bezeya she'ina iveres. When we say that mezuam interferes with a kohen's ability to serve, that's when it's a permanent condition. But if it's just a temporary condition, it doesn't really undo him. But by an Isha, even a zeya iveres is a concern. Rav Ashi Omar, these are two separate classifications, two separate conditions. Zeya, which is the term used by the Isha. Amezuam, karamis, you're asking from zeya, which is one condition, on mezuam, mentioned by the Kohanim, which is a totally different condition. Mezuam is something more serious, more internal. That would be possible even by the by the kohen. We're speaking about zeya, which is a more like a superficial type of condition, sweating. So that's only a concern by the Isha. Hasam gabe kehanim, because by the kohen over there, efshel la'avar, you can remove it, you can override an adverse bodily, scent with deodorant. Efshel la'avar b'keyo dechamri, you can remove it, you can override it using some sort of, wine derivative, some sharp wine of some sort of vinegar, some sort of deodorant that sort of, counters the unpleasant odor. Likewise, when it comes to an unpleasant oral, odor, nami there as well. The kohen can get around it by putting a pilpul or some sort of, device, some sort of vegetable, some sort of pepper into his mouth to undo that odor, and go do the avodah. So these are conditions that could be countered and addressed. But an Isha, living with her all the time, that's not an effective solution, and therefore by the Isha, dafka by the Isha, he can complain about even these types of not so serious conditions. So by the Isha, zeya is a concern, re'echapeh is a concern, as we just explained. And what was the third thing on the list? Shuma, a wart. Hayshuma echadami. What are we speaking about? What does it look like? Idi is poser, it's a wart with hair. Hachavacha pasel. Just as it's a concern by the Isha, it's a concern by the kohen as well. Idle is poser. If it has no seir, well, it depends how large it is. Isha Magdalihi, if it's a large-sized wart, Hachavacha Pasla applies by the Isha and by the Kohen as well. Isha Maktani, if it's a small-sized wart, it's never a concern anywhere. Hachavacha Loy Pasla, whether here or there, there's no concern, the Sanya. Shuma Sheesh Bos Seir, the Shuma contains hair. Hair is a mum. That's unsightly, and that's considered a mum by the Kohen as well. Ein Bos Seir, if it does not have any seir in it, well, Gedoy Lahar is a mum. If it's a large-sized shuma, that's a concern. Ktana in the mum. If it's small-sized, no concern. Veizer Igdoila, what's the shear of Igdoila? Pirish Hashim Gamliel. At Giser Talki needs to be the size of this coin called the Italian Isar. So give me a case where it's a concern by the Isha, not by the Kohen. Either it's a concern all over or never. We're speaking about a mini wart. without seir, which is not a concern by the kohen. By the isha it is, because it presents on her forehead, which makes it very visible and unsightly. Asks the Gemara, well, then he should have seen it. Why is he complaining now after marriage? Pedachta, it's on her forehead. Ra'ah, he noticed it. He surely noticed it. V'nifayis, and he was willing to do with it. He was willing to accept it. V'nifayisu, he went along with it. Why is he complaining now? Amra Papa Boimedes La Tachas Kipo Shal Roisha was speaking that it's hiding beneath her head covering. Sometimes it's visible. Sometimes not. So you can say, okay, I didn't expect it. I didn't notice it. Now that I discovered it, I'm unwilling to live with it. Amar B'chizda. Here we have another couple of examples of deficiencies which apply to an Isha. So the following halacha. Migavra Rabba Shmieli. I have heard from a great man. Umana, who is that man? Rabbi Shila. Noshcha Kelev. If she was chas v'shalom bitten by a dog, v'nasa mekamitz halekas, and the bite mark became a scar. Harei ze mum. That's considered a mum. Amar B'chizda likewise koil ava be'isha. Harei ze mum. Isha who exhibits a heavy voice. That's considered a deficiency. Shnemar ki koilich orev umarich nove. An Isha's voice is meant to be on the lighter side, expressing more of a sweetness than a heaviness. Tani Rav Nosson Biro. Here comes another mum. Bein dade isha tefach. The space between the two breasts of an isha is a tefach. Savar of Acha Breda Rav. So he figured, Kameda Rav Ashi, when he was learning this by Rav Ashi, and he explained it to him, and he told Rav Ashi that when we say tefach, it means that's the way it's meant to be. So he proposed to Rav Ashi that this shir, Bein Dadi Isha Tefach, is actually the way it's meant to be. It's it's something positive. Amalei Rav Ashi responded, no. Gabi Mumentanu. When we say a shir Tefach by the Isha, that's a deficiency. It's not meant to be that type of shir between the two dadim. V'kama. What is considered appropriate? Amar Abaye sholosh etzbois, 3 finger widths worth of space. Tanya of Nosson Eimer, Kol Isha shadadeo gasen mishal chavrisea, an Isha who exhibits oversized breasts, Harei ze mum, that's considered a mum. V'kama. What is considered a mum? Amar B'myashia, Brabrei, the grandson of the Rabbi Shimon Levi, he said it in the name of his grandfather, Mishmei, the Rabbi Shimon Levi, Tefach. If the Isha's dadim are tefach larger than the average, that's a problem. Umika kai gavna, is this really something that is to be found? Yes. I personally saw a Arvia Achas, Arab lady. She slung her dad to her back, and nursed her son in that manner. Apparently hers were oversized. Okay, here comes another drasha from the same on the Amar of Miyasha, based on a pasuk in Tehillim. Ulet Tzion, on behalf of Tzion Yerushalayim. This is Le'osad when the Amim, the nations will see the Bnei Yisrael. They'll take them and deliver them to Yerushalayim. Ulet Tzion, the Amar, on behalf of Tzion, it will be said as follows: Ish ve'ish, all these people, Yivolay, Yulad Ba, Vu Yechaneneh Elyon, these are all born there, and they're meant to be brought to Eretz Yisrael. They belong there. This is their place. And in fact, Hashem will elevate Yerushalayim above the whole world. Amar Miyasha Brei Rishon Levi. Even though the pasuk refers to Yulad Ba, to somebody who was actually born in Yerushalayim, it refers to Echad Hanulad Ba, whether a person was actually born there. V'echad Amet Sapel Roisa. Likewise, a person who's anticipating, he's looking forward to seeing Yerushalayim in its rebuilt state. He as well belongs there and will be brought there. Amar Abaye, v'chad minai, you meant to know that one person living in Eretz Yisrael, adif ketrei minan, in terms of his intellectual acumen, his sharpness, one fellow there is equal to two of us in Chutz La'aretz. Amar Rava, v'chad minan, but you should know that when one of us, ki salak lahasam, when he arrives to Eretz Yisrael and he lives there, he broke through all the difficulties and he went to Eretz Yisrael and he was successful. Odiv k'trei minayu is twice as smart as the locals. So he started off at a disadvantage, and then he outshines them all. What's my raya? We have living proof. Rabbi Yirmiyah. Look what happened to him. The Rabbi Yirmiyah. He came from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, right? The Chiyavahacha, when he used to live in Bavel, lo yhava yada ma'ika amir rabban. He had a difficult time comprehending what was being discussed amongst the Chachamim. And look what happened to him now. Kisalak lahasam, when he broke through and he prevailed and he overcame all the hurdles and traveled to Yisrael and he invested himself into it. Look what happened to him. He outshone everybody. Karilan, he refers to us in Babel, Bavloi tipshoy, you silly Babylonians. So you see that he really rose very high. Okay, so to summarize, we have the mumen by the Kohen, and we have several mumen that apply to the Isha. Specifically, we spoke about Zeya, Re'echapeh, Shuma, Tzalekes, Koil Over, and the Dadi Isha. Here comes an interesting shaila. So he marries and discovers she has mumen. Unbeknown to him, she comes into the marriage with severe deficiencies. The question is, when did they happen? Obviously, we're speaking about some things which she was not born with. Okay, otherwise there would be no question as to when it happened. Of course, they happened before they engaged, and he wouldn't have to pay the ksuba. But suppose these are things that could have developed any time. And here comes the question: when did they develop? Before engagement? In which case, husband says, "Look, I was misled. You should have disclosed." Or did they happen post-engagement? In which case, the father of the kala can say, "Look, it's your issue. It's your mazel. She's not at fault. It's like your property that got flooded. Pay the ksuba if you want a divorce." So who's in the right? Says the Mishnah, Hayu b'mumen. Suppose they discover some mumen in the Isha. So it depends. Va'oida b'veisavia, she's still at home. They engage, but she's still at home. Ha'av tzarech lavi raya, the father has to prove. The onus is on the father to prove shem mishenis arsa. Hayu b'mumen halalu. Now these women were there at the point of engagement. Sorry, that happened after engagement. Finished dachva sadeu, and then it's like his property got flooded. It's his issue. But nichnas l'rishus habal. Suppose they discover the mum post-marriage, when she's already living with the husband. In this case, he has to prove his case. Habal tzarech laviraya. He has to prove she'ad shelenis arsa haye b'mumen halal. Now these women developed before engagement. She'ad shelenis arsa haye b'mumen elu v'haye mikcha mekachtos. In which case, it was a mistaken transaction. Tivei Rabbi Meir. V'chachamim oimrim. V'ameh dvam amurim. When can a husband complain about the mumen discovered by his wife? But mumen shabaseiser, when they're concealed and hidden. In which case he can say, "Look, I didn't know this was coming." Aval b'mumen shabagoli. But suppose these mumen are visible and apparent. He has no complaints. You saw it, and you were okay with it. Here comes another chiddush. Let's say there is a bathhouse, a local bathhouse. In that case, he cannot complain about any mum, even those which are hidden, because he surely had her examined by way of his relatives. So whatever she had, he knew about. He has no grounds for complaints. Tosfos points out that Rameh would agree the mumish begoli, things which are visible and apparent, of course he can't complain. It's the second halacha. Well, we have the machlokes. but there's a merchatz there which allows him the opportunity to examine. There, the Rabbanon disagree with Rav Meir, and they say, look, there are no grounds for complaints. Let's go back to the Mishnah. He marries, and he discovers that she has mumen. He's saying, I don't want to give ksuba, because the mumen, they've been there for a while. They've been there before I engaged her. You should have disclosed. I didn't expect this. I'm not obligated. Father disagrees. He says, look, these happened later. They developed after you're engaged. It's your issue. So in the first case of the Mishnah, we say, Tama de Maisia of Raya. When does she get a ksuba? Only because the father proved his case. Holoi Maisia of Raya. But otherwise, if he has no way to prove his case, Habal Mehemen. Husband wins. Now, if we take a close look at the equation here, what are we going to discover? On the one hand, the husband is the muhsik. He's holding on to the money. He has the cheskas hamomen. It's his money. On the other hand, we have the cheskas haguf of the isha. She was born without a mum, and the assumption is that she stayed in that state, in a non-mum state, for as long as possible. Meaning, chances are, the mum developed more recently than not. In which case, she's in the right, or her father's in the right. She deserves a ksuba. Chances are the mum occurred later, more recently, during the engagement period, rather than before. So on his side of the argument, you have the cheskas mammon. It's my money. Prove that I owe you the money. On her side, you have the cheskas haguf. Which one prevails? We have already discussed this earlier in the Masechta, back on Daf Yud Beis, Daf Yud Gimel. It was actually machlekes tanoim. Rabbi Yeshua says he wins. Cheskas mammon against her cheskas haguf, he wins. Rabbi Gamliel says cheskas haguf wins. We seem to find a stira within our Mishnah, which seems to have a self-contradiction. Mishnah starts, who has to prove the case here? Father. Which would indicate that the husband's cheskas mammon stands higher. Mani, who's speaking? Rabbi Yeshua. Oh, that's Rabbi Yeshua. The Amar Lo Mipiyah Nichayim. Had a case there which she turned out to be a non-basula, and the question is when it happened. She says it happened later. He says it happened earlier, and I don't deserve this isha. I don't want to pay the ksuba. Rabbi Yeshua says, "Let me pay on Nichayim." You can't live on her words. You can't rely on her claims. Cheskas mammon is stronger, just like our Mishnah. Father has to prove the case, otherwise there's no ksuba payment. Amos Seifa. Now let's proceed to the next part of the Mishnah, where we seem to learn otherwise. Just the opposite. Okay, so now she's married, she's with the husband, discovered a mum. They have the same argument. When did it happen? Before engagement? Mistaken identity, mistaken transaction. No, she says it happened later. It's your fault. What does Mishnah tell us? She prevails. She's in the right. Habal tzarich laviraya. The husband has to prove his case. Why? She has a cheskas haguf, which indicates that the mum happened as late as possible, as recent as possible, while she was already engaged. So who's speaking here? Son. Tam demasya bal raya. So if he proves his case, then he wins. But if he doesn't prove his case, the father wins. Because of cheskas haguf. Who is speaking? Whose shita is reflected in this halacha? That's Rabbi Gamliel, an entirely different shita. Son of Rabbi Gamliel, the Amar Ne'emene, that she's believed because cheskas haguf stands higher. That's a stira within the Mishnah. Amar Balazu, you're right. Tavar will break up the Mishnah, which sort of reflects opposing opinions. Misha Shanazu, the man the Amar of the first part of the Mishnah, Rabbi Yeshua Lo Shanazu, was not the same as author of the second part of the Mishnah, which is reflective of an entirely opposing view. Amar Rava. Says Rava, I want to tell you something interesting. It's like a sidebar. Don't think for a second that according to Rabbi Yeshua we never reckon with cheskas haguf. Ella, rather, Kiloi azal Rabbi Yeshua basar chazaka de gufa. When does Rabbi Yeshua ignore cheskas aguf? Heicha de ika chazaka de mamayna. As we explained, because it's countered by his chazaka. He wants to hold on to his money, which was rightfully his until now. So that sort of overrides her argument based on her cheskas aguf. Meaning, basically, cheskas aguf is not strong enough to force a person to pay. It's very nice, I have a cheskas aguf, but I have the money. And we know that hamoitzi mechaveroi, all over you want to extract money, you want to force payment, you have to prove your case. So that's the equation here. But in a case where, suppose there is no chazakos mamain to talk about, of course in that case, of course he would totally reckon with cheskas aguf. How do I know this? The Sanya, im baheres koidem l'seir lavan. We know that a person has a baheres, a nega, taras, into which white hair grew. So if the nega precedes the growing of the white hair, so it's sort of like the nega produced the white hair, tamei, then it's considered a sign of tumah. But in the reverse, it's not tamei. Im seir lavan koidem l'baheres. But if the white hair were discovered before the baheres showed up, they don't identify with the nega, they're not related to the nega, they were not produced by the nega, then it's tar. Suffolk. Let's say not show which came first. Tamei. Rabbi Shua, no. Keah. My Keah, what does Keah mean? I'm a rabbi Keah v'tar. Keah tar. It's a way of saying it's tar. Rashi has two pshatim. Keah is a term mentioned in the pasuk as a light-colored nega, not tamei. So here as well, he meant to say it's tar. Another pshat, in the name of Rav Moshe Hadarshan, says Rashi, Keah is meant to be spelled with a kuf. Kiha, sharp, dull, like a person's teeth, were exposed to some acidic, substance and became dulled, like we have in the Haggadah. By the Russia, we say hakheyas shinava. Everybody thinks it means knock out his teeth. No, it's for the kuf, dull his teeth. Give him a hard time so that he's like uncomfortable. And it's like, a person has an opinion that's not being, respected and recognized. So it's like he sort of like loses taste. He gets dulled. So that's what it means. Rabbi Shua was trying to convince them about his position that a suffix in this case will be Torah. In any case, bottom line is you see that Rabbi Shua, it's Rabbi Shua speaking, considers this fellow to be Torah. Why? Because he has a chazaka that he's Torah, cheskas aguf. He was Torah until now. Is this a nega or not? We're not sure. So when in doubt, we revert to his previous condition. And since he was in a Torah status, he retains that status. Okay, back to our sugi. That was a side point. But now with sugi we had a very strong kasha. In the first case of the Mishnah, where they discovered the mum while still in her parents' home. She was engaged, but she was still home. Then there was a question as to when the mum occurred. Did it develop before engagement, so the husband is in the right, or after engagement, she's in the right? So we say, father has to prove his case. In the next case, where the mum was discovered after she's already in her husband's place, in that case, the husband has to prove his case. So we had a kasha, we gave one teretz. Actually, these two halachas are reflective of two different opinions, two different shittas, and really are incompatible with each other. Rava adopts a different approach. He says, look, it's all reflective of the same exact shita, which she says Rabbi Gamliel. Then when there's a question of following cheskas aguf, which would put her in the right, that the mum arrived only recently, versus his cheskas mamin, I want to hold on to my money, which puts him in the right, certainly cheskas aguf overrides. That's the underlying, notion of our mission. So why then is there a difference between the first and second case in the Mishnah? Very simple. Rav Amar Reisha kan nimtzeu in the Reisha. Where was the mum discovered? Where did he discover these blemishes? Kan, over here when she was still in her father's home. V'kan hayu. This is a formula in Shas. You find it here, it was always here. Chances are It's been here for a while. Chances are she was already a balas mum going back to before engagement. Not forever, but for a while. Oh, so she came into engagement as a balas mum, as one with a blemish. So husband is in the right. Seifa. Nami kan nimtzu v'kan hayu. Likewise in the Seifa. We apply the same exact formula. When did he discover the woman? When she was already with him. Kan nimtzu kan hayu. They're here now, they're here for a while. Which means that they came about in this place, in this location. That's what it means. Since it was discovered in this location, we assume it came about in this location, which basically means under her husband's care. So when they were discovered back in her parents' home, we say, okay, they were there for a while, even before engagement. But once she marries and she's with her husband, and they discovered here, right? Discovered the mum here, we assume these women were developed here and not back home in her parents' house. So in this case, unless he can prove that the women were present earlier, he has to pay his ksuba. Asks the Gemara, Eisve Abaye. So Abaye asks a kasha to Rav. Look at our Mishnah. Nichnas elishus habal. So she's now living with the husband. Habal tzarich lavei raya. So now they discover the woman. The husband has to prove sha'at shalitis aris hayiba mumin elu. He has to prove that these women were there still from before engagement, which would make it null and void, right? In this way, the whole engagement was just mistaken. It's over. Question. It only works if he proves that the mum was there from before engagement, in which case he was misled, right? But why do you have to go back so far? Mishatis aris loy, which sounds like if he, let's say he can prove Adam saw the mum while she was home after engagement. They don't know about before engagement. They saw it afterwards, but she was still home. It doesn't work. It cannot be used as proof that she had it before engagement, which would put him in the right. You can't prove it. It is not sufficient for that. Why? Why? According to you, Lema, let's say, kan nimtzu v'kan hoyu. When you discovered it here, it was here for a while. It was here all along. So even without explicitly knowing that it was there before engagement, since you discovered it here, we assume it's been here for a while, unless proven otherwise. So why isn't that enough to put the husband in the right? So Rava respond, look, you have a good point, but we're speaking that he already married her. Oh, that changes the whole equation. Amalei, mission is arsa. If you could only prove that the mum was there after engagement while still home, true, you want to say that should serve as a raya that it was there for a while, even before engagement. But there is a counter argument to that as well. Mishum dikla, because we can say like this: chazaka. It's an established presumption. Ein adam shoyse bekus. A person would not pick up a kais and drink from it unless he examines it, make sure it's clean and sanitary. It's just a mashal. Here, when he actually married her, that's the comparison to the shtiyas hakais. We can be sure that he checked her out. V'hayra, he certainly noticed it. V'nefayisu, he saw and he was okay with it. The fayis lotion of appeasement, he was okay with it. Right, so here it's different, because once he marries her, there's a svara to say that he accepted it. Asks the Gemara 1 second. So going with that, you're making it more difficult. So nami. So let's say he goes and he proves that she had the mum before engagement. So it's null and void. What do you mean? Apply the same idea. But once he married her, he certainly noticed and he agreed with it. and he was accepting of it. Oh, Elo. So apparently you have to say, Amrinan, we don't really accept this as an argument, because we can say, Chazaka eino de mafayis b'mumen. There is a strong reason to think that a person is not willing to accept mumen. The fact that he married her doesn't mean that he accepted it. He didn't notice it. So Hachanami is here as well, meaning in the other case, where he proved that he found, the mum while she was already engaged, we say it's not enough. And the question was why? If the mum was discovered back home, we assume it was there for a while before engagement. So you told me, no. The fact that he married her indicates that he was moichel. What do you mean? Chazaka ino de mafayis b'mumen. Apply the same idea here. A person is not willing to accept mumen. Apparently he didn't notice it. So basically going around in circles. So back to the kasha. What was the kasha? Mishnah says, in order for the husband to absolve himself of the ksuba payment, he has to prove one thing: that the mum was already there before engagement. Why? It was there during engagement, and her father's home also proves the same. Kanin tsikam hoya. If it's here, it's been here for a while. So the Gemara will come up with an interesting formula. It's going to be 2 against 1. We're going to have many factors to work with, many factors in this equation. And when we line up the factors, we will see that we're always going to be following the majority of factors. It's going to end up being 2 against 1, which will compel us to arrive at this conclusion. The conclusion as per the halacha in the Mishnah. Ella, rather, it's as follows. Mishin is arsa. If he has edim that she had a mum after engagement, during her stay at her parents' home, in that case, she's going to win. You know why? It's 2 against 1. Because you have 2 chazakis, 2 positive elements in her favor. Number 1, Hamid Haguf al Cheskos. You have Cheskos Haguf. She was born without a mum. We assume that condition continued as long as possible. And she came into engagement free of mum. So that factor works in her favor. Number 2, we also have that svara. Then ein adam shoyis sebekois elim kein boitka. He wouldn't proceed with marriage unless he investigated the matter thoroughly. He confirmed that there are no women. And the fact that he proceeded indicates that he saw, he noticed, he knew, and he was fine with it. My amos. So what can you, argue against this? Meaning, what factor can you come up with which would put him in the right? Right? Chazaka ein adam mafayis b'mumen. Is a chazaka that a person is not willing to live with an isha in mumen, which would lead us to conclude that he probably didn't notice the mumen. It's a surprise to him. Sure, so that's one factor in his favor, but it's against 2 in her favor. Havichad b'makam tarti. So it's 1 against 2. V'chad b'makam tarti le'amrina. 1 against 2 doesn't win. So that's why in this case he loses. So again, if he brings an aid edim that she had her mum during engagement while still at home, in that case he loses the deal, because there are 2 favors in her factor versus 1 in his factor. What are the 2 in her factor? Cheskas Haguf, which says that the mum happened as recent as possible. It was not there during the actual moment of engagement. She didn't mislead him. She deserves the ksuba. Number 2, the fact that he went ahead and actually married her lends us to suspect that he noticed and he knew, and he was willing to live with it. Continues the Gemara. On the other hand, if he proves that the women were there before engagement, now he wins, because it's 2 against 1 in his favor. Number 1, Hamid Aguf al Cheskos Aleika. Well, let's get one thing off the table. There's no Cheskos Aguf. The presumption that she was born and likewise continued throughout life through engagement at a moment, that doesn't exist. They know there was a mum before engagement. That's off the table. That's a non-factor. That cannot be proposed. Ma'ika. Which factor can you come up with in her favor? Chazaka de ein adam shoyse b'kois elam kein boitka. To assume that a person will not drink, will not marry without investigating. V'hayrav and afayis. So the fact that he proceeded leads us to believe, to suspect that he accepted it, that he was willing to live with it. V'hayrav and afayis. So that favor is in her fact. That factor is in her favor, right? But against that, we have two factors in his favor, and therefore he wins. Adrab is the opposite. Number one, chazaka ein adam afayis b'mumin. It is assumed that a person does not accept mumin. Apparently, he didn't notice it. It's a surprise to him. Number two, v'hamid mumin nechasnos. The fact is, it's his money in his possession. You can't take it without raya. So now he wins. Rashi points out an interesting thing, that before we didn't say anything about, when she was in the right, we didn't reckon with this point of cheskas mammon. What do you mean? It's his money. So Rashi says, because in that case we were dealing with her having a cheskas aguf, and when she has a cheskas aguf, according to Rabbi Gamliel, that overrides cheskas mammon. So cheskas mammon is not a factor. But here in this case, where he proved that she had the mum before engagement, cheskas aguf is non-player. So now we sort of revitalize and refresh his cheskas mammon. That adds another factor on his side. It's 2 against 1. He wins. Okay, let's recap today's daf. So in one case, even if the Isha was matir her nedarim, which sort of works retroactively, it doesn't help, because she's an Isha chashuva from a prominent family. He doesn't want to get involved with an Isha who's going to end up getting divorced from him, which will limit his ability to access other members in her family. But on her side of the coin, we say an Isha is willing to live with anything. It provides her with pride and prestige amongst her social circles. We added several mumen that apply to Isha unfound by the Kehanim. Zeya Re'echapeh, Shuma, Koil, Tzalekes, and Dadin. We spoke about the Ben Chutzlaritz who moves up to Eretz Yisrael, who acquires double sharpness, as per Rabbi Yirmiyah. Then we had a story of an Isha who discovers, a husband who discovers some mumen by his Isha. The question is, when did it happen, before or after? If it happened before engagement, he says, Mekach Tos, no ksuba, to be paid to you. She says, what do you mean? It happened later? It's your fault. So in the first part of the Mishnah, which actually took place beveis aviyah, we say the husband prevails, there's no ksuba payment. In the Seifa, he discovered it when she was already with him. In that case, she wins, she gets her ksuba. We have 2 ways to understand the Mishnah. Abaye, who says that, in the first case, it's Rabbi Yeshua speaking, who says cheskas mammon wins, husband wins. Second case, it's Rabbi Gamliel speaking, cheskas aguf wins, so she wins. Rabbi says no, the entire Mishnah reflects Rabbi Gamliel's shita. Typically, cheskas aguf wins, but there's another factor called kan nimtza kan haya. When you discover it here, we assume it's been here all along. So in the first case, they discovered it back home, we assume it's been there for a while, and she entered engagement in that condition, she misled him, mekach tos. In the second case, they discovered the woman after marriage, when she was already at home with her husband. So we assume the mum developed right here. That's his issue. Then we had an interesting, back and forth at the end of the Gemara, and we came up with the halacha as follows: if the husband proves that the woman occurred before erusin, before engagement, then he wins. Why? Because there are 2 factors in his favor. Number one, a person is never willing to live with a woman. It must be something that I never noticed. It's a surprise to me. Number 2, he has a cheskas mammon on his side. It's my money. But if he proves that the women were there post-engagement, but he can't prove that it was there going into engagement, then she wins, she gets her ksuba. Why? Because there are 2 factors in her favor. Cheskas aguf, which indicates that just as she was born without a woman, that condition continued into engagement, and it only occurred under his watch. Number 2, we say, the fact that you married her indicates that you probably noticed and knew, and you took it upon yourself, you're willing to live with it, in which case, if you want a divorce, you owe her the ksuba. All the best to you, and hatzlacha.